And Hong Kong has charged the first group of protesters with rioting since the beginning of the anti-extradition bill demonstrations. The 43 protesters facing rioting charges have been released on bail. The defendants are among 49 arrested in connection with Sunday's violent clashes in Central and Western districts. Now, for more analysis on this, we're joined live by political analyst Joseph Cheng from Hong Kong. Joseph, since the start of the anti-extradition bill demonstrations, as we mentioned, this is the first set of protesters to face charges, and it's just a few days after Sunday's clashes. Does this signal Hong Kong authorities taking a stronger line against demonstrators?
Probably so. Last Monday, the Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office in Beijing gave a press conference, and the spokesperson indicated that the top priority now is to stop the protest activities in the territory. And this is a natural extension of the supposed policy of the Carrie Lam administration, namely keeping a low profile herself, but making no apologies, no further apologies, no more concessions, and probably initiating a crackdown on the protests and more limitations on the activities of the protesters.
So saying that, because you know that rioting is a serious offense and protesters found guilty can face up to 10 years behind bars. As you mentioned there, no more concessions. Is this a warning for protesters, or is this just the tip of the iceberg of perhaps more to come?
This is probably the tip of the iceberg, because there are many protesters who have been arrested as well and waiting to be prosecuted. The idea, of course, is to generate a deterrence effect. This deterrence effect certainly is effective to the vast majority of the people of Hong Kong. But one has to realize that you probably have 4,000 or 5,000 very desperate, very angry young people who share a strong sense of solidarity with those who have been detained, who are to be prosecuted, and they will certainly carry on their violent protest activities.
Many of the defendants accused of rioting are in their early 20s. The youngest, we understand, is a 16-year-old girl. What would be the probable outcome?
It is terrible. We all understand that a prison term and a criminal record may easily ruin the careers of young persons. And this certainly caused a lot of concerns, a lot of worries among parents whose children are taking part in these protest activities. And it is natural that some of these young people, when arrested, burst into tears, because at that moment, they then realize the risks, the dangers that they are going to face.
But Joseph, we have a question here, but will these actual charges perhaps maybe trigger more demonstrations? Because today we already saw protesters coming out at the police station.
Exactly. As I explained, there are groups of radical, desperate young people who certainly find the prosecutions, the judicial system increasingly unfair and illegitimate. And a good indicator was that last night almost 1,000 people surrounded the police station in which the protesters were detained. And this kind of confrontation with the police will certainly continue because of their sense of injustice in the system.
Speaking of justice, then, can we expect the suspected triad gangs who attacked protesters and commuters in Yuen Long to also be charged with rioting?
Unfortunately, no. It appears that they will be charged with a much lighter crime, namely unlawful assembly. And this, of course, has added to the sense of injustice on the part of the pro-democracy protesters.
All right, many thanks for your thoughts this evening. Joseph Cheng, political analyst in Hong Kong.